What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. I'm just curious, have you guys ever gone out to, get your generator started, and if it's a pull start, sit there and pull and pull and pull, or a lawnmower, or just even electric start engine, you just sit there and pull, or even just listen to it turn and turn and turn, and the engine just never starts? Well, let's go over possibilities why that engine's not starting. And I have a really good foundation over here that can possibly help me give you guys a more of a visual explanation as to why that engine just ain't running. Stay tuned. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. Hopefully you guys had a wonderful New Year's. Mine was fantastic. I got to set off all my artillery shells and use my train horn to wake up the neighborhood. That was great. But anyway, today's video, I'm actually going to be diving into a little bit about engine principles and hopefully explain the functionality of some of the components and possibly help you guys out why your engines aren't running. In this video, I'm going to be covering possibly why your generator, your lawnmower, even anything that's electric start, why the engine's turning and turning and turning and just not starting, or if you're sitting there and pulling, it just won't start. Well, hopefully this video will help you guys out as to why that's happening. So stay tuned and we'll get right into it. All right, so I'd like to start with introducing you guys to one of my donor engines. Now, last year before the freeze, I had posted myself up on the Nextdoor app, and hopefully to let everybody know that I do work on generators, and if you guys might have your power knocked out, you guys need to have your generators ready to go in the event of an emergency. And it turned out that during Hurricane Beryl, I did receive that feedback. I had a lot of people calling me, and then I had worked on like 10 generators before the storm hit, and that was just to get people all started and ready to go. But after the storm hit, a grand total of about 78 generators is what I serviced. So among all of those generators, this one here is one from one of my donors, from one of my customers. This one ran for about 2 days. And then it stopped, it locked up, and we couldn't get it to pull start. It wouldn't start at all. So I found out exactly why it won't run, but that's when I thought, you know what, let me go ahead and just make a video showing what I found, but also the principles of how an engine operates, what I look into whenever I'm servicing these, and if it's not running, how can I figure out how to get it to start and hopefully save the customer a few bucks, Because, I mean, not everybody can just dump like a couple $100 on repairs or a couple $1,000 on a brand new generator. So come on. So anyway, let's go ahead and dive right into this. First things first. Let me go ahead and get this on my head. All right, I don't know if you guys can see, but we're going to give it a shot. All right, this engine, I pretty much have it all kind of tore down. I took out some of the components. As you can see, I've already taken out the head bolts, and all the stuff it's all loose right now, but I'm gonna cover it all. All right, thing number one, whenever you guys are sitting there starting, of course, let's say you've already checked it's got gas, you have a brand new spark plug, and let's just say the carburetor is in good shape, it's brand new, right? But you went ahead and you put oil into the engine, but you weren't exactly sure of exactly how much oil to put in. So you just put in a whole bunch, and then you went based upon this little dipstick here. Well, let's just say you put like this much of oil into it, and you know your engine's running fine, good. But the next time you go to service it, you're like, you know what, I think it's running low, or if it's just not running right, maybe it just needs more oil. Well, I'm telling you right now, these engines don't burn oil. This is not a two-stroke. Okay, two-stroke burns oil, and that oil is mixed into the gas. Four-stroke does not do that. Four-stroke engines have a separate gas tank, and then down below is an oil reserve. There's a pocket down here where the oil goes. As you can clearly see, this section right here, from here down, is all oil, okay? That's why you have an oil drain and an oil fill. And then on this side, you're also gonna have an oil drain and an oil fill. So this dipstick would go here, and let's just say you filled it all the way up to here, and so as soon as you pull this out, oil starts spilling out. And this would be like on level ground. It's very possible that some people will just cap this off. I've seen this. They cap this off, and the generator is like on its side, right? So they go to test, they check this oil dipstick over here, right? They go to pull it out, and the oil is just barely on the stick. They're like, holy shit, this thing's almost out of oil. It must be burning oil. I need to put more in. So they fill it up. They put more oil in, topping it off here. Well, the problem is, whenever this was uneven, you're just reading the highest point of where the oil was here. But over here, if you were to undo that, it would just spill out everywhere. That's a mistake, number one. I see that on many other generators and other engines. So what happens when you over oil an engine? Well, very simple. I'm gonna get to that here in just a second, but let's go ahead and cover some of the things you might want to look into. One, you want to make sure your air filter is nice and clean, okay? Because this thing needs to breathe. As I make noise, great. Make sure the oil filter is nice and clean. I think this one was fairly new. It's just a black one. Can't really see light through it, but I know this one was fairly clean. So check your oil filter, or the air filter. If the air filter is clear and is brand new, then that means that this machine can breathe properly, which is very important. Come here. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna pull this off to the side. Come on, get off. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing. All right, so I'm gonna pull the air filter off to the side. Now, note that there's this little hole, right? This hole, I don't have it now, but this hole is the same size as this one. On every engine, it's gonna have a rubber hose that's gonna connect these two, right? Yeah, you guys can see. It's a rubber hose that connects these two. That rubber hose is extremely important, okay? You can't block it off, and you can't just not have one. It needs to be there. What that is for the crankcase breather. This engine needs to breathe while it's running, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But just note, oil vapors come out of here. They flow through that rubber tube or the rubber hose into here, and then they hook right in to the carburetor, and now you got oil vapors that go back through here. Think of it as like an EGR on your car, okay? So what happens in here is it gets recirculated back into the carburetor and inside the carb through to the engine, so it can be burned off. So this part here plays a role when you over oil an engine. You go from mild oil vapors to just straight oil, like fluid, straight fluid, and I'll explain here in just a second. All right, so let's set the air filter over here. All right, carburetor. We'll cover this in another video, but this is only designed to atomize fuel and mix it with air so it can be combusted and burned into the engine. So we're going to pull this off. All right, and we'll cover this, like I said, in another video. Now we're gonna put the little guy over here. Now, let's dig a little further, right? This is your intake. Before I dig into this, one other thing you might want to also check. What if you over oiled the engine? All right, it's brand new, it runs good for a few minutes, but then it just kind of like bogs, and then eventually it just dies. Okay, possibility is you may have fouled out your spark plug. It's very, very possible. I've seen it on a few vehicles and machines. So you'll pull out your spark plug. This is a brand new one, and this only ran for, what was it, maybe 30 minutes, and then it died. But this was a brand new spark plug. So we'll pull this out, and what I'd be looking at is the actual, you're gonna be looking at the diode. What diode I'm talking about? Come here, where are you at? All right, guys, I need y'all to focus on this pick. Okay, see this diode right here? This is a copper core. This core goes all the way through the ceramic, past this steel sleeve, and this is also ceramic right here. But that is the copper core. This is your copper diode. This is your ground strap. So in order for the spark to jump from the diode over to the ground strap, it needs to have a clean path of travel. Now, whenever I say if you foul out a plug, that means if too much fuel gets in there, that spark cannot jump through liquid. It just can't. And if it does, it has a really hard time doing it. You're gonna have a weak spark. And even worse, if you have oil, see how all the oil is on these threads? Okay, there's a lot of oil in here. If oil gets on top of this diode, well, that spark cannot jump through that oil to get to the ground strap. So therefore, you lose spark and the engine will not run. And whenever they say the engine is running lean, that means it's running really, really hot, so it will turn white. If it's running rich, it'll look really wet like this. That means there is too much fuel in there, and it'll look fairly dark, almost like it's charred, but really, really wet. So mixture means everything. So if your vehicle, if this isn't running, or if any of your machines are not running, check your plugs and see if the diode is clear, if it's clean, if it's burning too lean, if it's too rich. Just make sure your mixture is right, and make sure you're not dumping oil into your intake so it can be burned off. So we're gonna set this off to the side. All right, now on to the valve cover. This is important. All right, so we're gonna pull this open. I've already torn most of this stuff apart, and that's when I realized I really need to make a video about this. All right, so this is gonna be the top half of your engine. I'll pull this off. Now inside your valve cover, you're gonna have this little panel that's on the inside. It's like a little flap. It's this little divider. What this is designed for is whenever oil is dumped into the top up here, just straight liquid does not make it in here. The vapor has to go around that disc. It goes over the top, and only vapor can make its way through here. That's its way of kind of like sifting it out, or preventing straight oil being dumped right into your intake and causing it to just sit there and smoke like a chimney. So if your engine, when you fire it up, that sucker's just billowing out nothing but white smoke, that's what's happening. Is you got excess oil inside here. It's making it past this little diaphragm, or this little plate, past here and straight out of here right into your intake through the carb, and it's just burning off the oil that's in the intake. Now, it's okay, you can keep running an engine if it keeps smoking like that, just white smoke, because eventually it'll burn itself down to the level where it needs to be, and then it'll just stop smoking. So it's very, very possible you may have just over oiled it a little bit, but it's not going to hurt the engine. The only thing it's going to do is A, cause it to run kind of crappy, and B, it's going to foul out that spark plug. So you need to pay close attention to that. So that is why that little plate in there exists. That's why it's there. All right, so let's move on to the next thing. This seal is important. It's a rubber gasket for your valve cover. This one here is still in good shape. I can reuse it, but I'm not going to, simply because this engine locked up. And I wanted to know why this engine locked up, so that's why I decided to tear this thing apart today. All right, in here you're gonna have, this is what they call a rocker. Okay, you got your valve springs. Inside would be your keepers. This is your rocker, and then you have your push rods. Okay, the push rods sit inside here. They're about this long. This is how long they are. Okay, on each side it looks like a little ball, and there's a reason for that. Okay, let me show you. Yep, I pull the rocker off. The purpose of this is it acts like a teeter-totter. That's all it does all day long. That's it. That's its only job. This rod down here pushes up, which causes it to teeter this way, which causes that to push the spring down, which will open up that valve on the inside. I'll show you guys that here in just a second. So we're going to pull that rocker off. Now, oiling. When this engine is oiling, it's hard to see. Let's say you over oil the engine. What happens to the oil? Well, it's going to come up here, and there's a channel. It's hard to tell. There's a channel all the way through here. This is your channel. This, all of this right here, and then look, see it right there? I don't know if you guys can see. There you go. Yeah, that right there. That's an oil channel for the crankcase ventilation. Okay, so this is where your engine itself breathes. It also takes oil. Another part of its principle is it takes oil and it dumps it inside here, lubricating everything on the top end. And that is very important. So the oil makes its way on top of here, down your push rods, and down into this little valley back here. Well, where is that going? Well, let's dive into that. There's that socket. I was looking for that. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull this little guy off of here. Get off, I wasn't asking. Jeez. Oh, now you want to be difficult. Now it wants to be difficult. That's fine. Come on, get off of there. All right, let's slowly pull this away. All right, that's your piston. This is the head gasket. This is a head gasket, so whenever somebody says, oh, my head gasket blew, that's what this is. It's basically a metal gasket. All right, now this little guy sits down inside this valley. I don't know if you can see, but there's little joints. This is where your lifters are at, down inside. I can't compress it because it's sitting on top of the cam that's on the inside. So if you look, I don't know if you can, hard to do with this GoPro on my head, but down inside there, if you can see that this hole, okay, that hole, when that oil comes out of this crankcase, out of this hole, I don't know if you guys can see. Let me take this off my head so I know you can see. There we go. Hopefully you can. If not, then that's fine. That hole goes all the way down into the bottom of the crankcase. It's hard to tell. I'm sorry guys, I'm really trying here. You probably can't see. Not with that one. Let's try with my handy dandy itty bitty light. Ah, there you go. See, that's a clear path right into the bottom of the engine. And that right there, oil comes up through there, and then like I said, it dumps off into the top of the engine. So that's where your oil is coming from, is in there. It comes out of here and then it returns back into the bottom of the engine, which you probably can't see, but look at this now. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. You see those things on either side? Those are your lifters, and that hole in the middle is the drain for the oil to go back into the crankcase. So oil can come back up through here and through here, causing excess oil to make it through the valve cover, which like I said was here, to be dumped right back into your carburetor through here. If that makes any sense. So that's where the oil is coming from. If you guys don't know that stuff, that's what happens. All right, so it took a quick second and I released this valve spring, so this comes out, set it off to the side. These are so weak I can compress them with my fingers, but not all vehicles are the same way. All right, so on here, this is gonna be your intake valve and this is your exhaust valve. The exhaust valve is always gonna be thicker, but your intake valve is always gonna be bigger. Let me show you why. Look at this. Oh, come on. I said get off. Remember how I told you? This is your intake, this is your exhaust. You see how much larger this one is versus your exhaust? All right, so let's just say on a 4-cycle engine, here's how it works, okay? This would be your magnet for the ignition coil, which is this little guy right here, all right? He sits happy-go-lucky right there, but he sits so close to it, you can just barely fit a piece of paper through there. And as that magnet passes across this coil, it creates an electric charge, or like an electromagnetic field, which creates your magnetic charge, and that's what gives you your power. I'm pretty sure there's more of a technical way to describe that. I'm just not going to explain it. All right, so let's just say this is top dead center at this point, and I mean, I can cover this. I can actually put this on here, and I can tell if this engine was at top dead center or bottom center. The magnet would be completely opposite of the coil itself, and that truck is loud. Come on, guys, I'm teaching here. So if the magnet is on the opposite side of the coils, that means that that cylinder, the piston, will be at its bottommost section. You see how it just barely moves? Hang on. See that? See how the piston goes down? It stops, and then it starts coming back up. So right 180, if that magnet is 180 of that coil, like this, if it's 180 of that coil, then that cylinder, the piston, would be at bottom dead center. So we're gonna bring it back to top dead center, which means it's right here. So if I were to pull this off, this should be flush. You can barely see it stop right there. So that's about top dead center-ish. Yeah, right there. So it's top dead center. So it was directly across before. All right, so 4-stroke engines are very simple, very, very simple. Just remember these 4 things: suck, squeeze, bang, blow. All right, that's it. Suck, squeeze, bang, blow. What it does is it sucks in atmospheric pressure, the air from outside, and this is a naturally aspirated engine. It's not turbocharged or supercharged or whatever. Naturally aspirated, so it naturally pulls in the atmospheric pressure outside. So, which is like 14 point something PSI, whichever. So it's at the top dead center. Right now it's going to be in its first stage, which is the suck stage. So the cams would start moving. The intake valve, this one here, would start to open, and it would stop probably right about there. I'm just ballparking. So it would barely open. It's not closed, it opens, and it would just be level with the casing. So that's about all it's going to open. So fresh air is coming into the cylinder, and this piston now acts like a giant straw or a vacuum. It sucks air in, it's pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling, and when it gets down to the very bottom, as soon as it gets to the bottom, this intake valve closes. Both of these are closed. The piston starts coming back up. Now whatever air is on the inside, this is how much it was able to suck in. Everything from out here is now crammed inside this little volume of space. So now the piston starts coming back up, and it is squeezing. So suck, squeeze. It's just pushing and cramming. Mind you, it's just getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And as it does, it gets to the point where all that volume of air has now compressed, because compressed air, more dense air, it combusts better. So now it's at top dead center. It's not entirely flat with the base of this, because you still have this this dome on the inside, and the actual piston itself has this little indention into it. I don't know if you can see. See this little shadow, this rim? So you got a small cavity right here. So this is where air is currently compressed. All right. So now that the piston is at the top of it, top half of the second part of the cycle, which is the squeeze cycle, now you have fuel introduced at the same time. Whenever it was squeezing, fuel and air mixture was being pushed into here. Now this closes. No, I'm sorry, they're both closed, and then your spark plug ignites that air fuel mixture that's inside there. So now we're in the bang part. Suck, squeeze, bang. The explosion is so violent that it forced that piston down as fast as it can go. So now, boom, it explodes. That's where you get your power, by the explosion of that fuel. So as it goes down, it gets down to the very bottom. Then your exhaust valve, this one here, boop, where's it at? It goes, hi, I'm open. So this sucker opens, and all this now burned exhaust has got to go somewhere, and it gets pushed out your exhaust valve. Here comes the last side of the ignition cycle, which is the blow cycle. So it blows it out. It pushes it right back outside. It pushes everything out of here, and then out the exhaust side and through your muffler, which the muffler's over there, out the muffler, and then the cycle immediately starts repeating itself. Then the intakes, the valve, the exhaust closes and the intake automatically opens, and it repeats the cycle all over again. So hopefully that helped you guys out of how this stuff works. But I'm at a point right now where I'm debating whether I want to even try to rebuild this, which I'm probably not going to. But I'm just going to go ahead and explain really fast why this engine locked up. When I pulled this thing apart, I found debris inside the engine, and it was a screw, a very tiny screw. I don't know if you guys can see that. This tiny screw, it was right here. It was resting. It was smashed up against the bottom of this. And I mean, it was smashed. This was once a full-size screw, and somehow it fell down inside the engine. I don't know how. I looked at this gasket, and this gasket still looks good. But if you look, you can see the indentation. You see that indentation right there of where the screw was before? No, I'm sorry. No, that's an arrow for that. No, there's other damage. Where'd it go? Yeah, right here. It's gonna be this indentation, because that's an arrow pointing toward the front, which in this case it would be pointing toward the front of the engine. That's how you orientate your pistons. But you can see little notches where particles of this screw was just hammered numerous times, and the head of this ended up right here, sandwiched between the bottom of the piston, I'm sorry, the top of the piston and the surface of this. So I don't know how that happened. I have no clue. But as soon as I released this, I was able to turn this engine over. She moves. It's not locked up. Do I want to fix it? No. I did double check everything else in here, and if you look close enough, you can see cross hatching. What I mean by cross hatching is all the little the swirls that you see on the side wall of the cylinder wall. That's good. I mean, it's not scoring. It didn't get too hot. The piston didn't drag the side, which means this thing was getting oil. This thing was running really well until it didn't. And unfortunately, it was this little bitty screw that killed this generator. So, but anyway, that's pretty much it for all of my findings on this engine. Hopefully this video kind of helps you guys out. I can't think of anything else to show you guys about these engines, but yeah, this is, I want to know why this engine ultimately died, and now I know why. I'm going to be taking this thing apart. I'm going to save the generator portion of it, this motor back here. I'm going to save it, and the rest of it I'm just going to recycle it for scrap metal. So, but anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video as much as I had making it, and hopefully you guys learned something. If you want to know more about this stuff, please comment down below. Let me know what you want to know, and I'll do my best to answer your questions. Hopefully teach you guys stuff that you probably could use. But until next time, y'all take it easy. I love you. Bye. A little bonus footage for those who want to see it in action. Watch this. Let's see if I can do it like this. Here we go. Well, there it is. All right, hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. Okay, bye.